You're listening to the 14th Source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. The episode for Friday, September 8th, 2023.
Okay, so I always forget that September 8th is in fact what the marketing people at Paramount call Star Trek Day.
You always forget, or is there a reminder in your phone?
No, I go on the internet, and the internet tells me. But no, the idea that, hey, it's Star Trek Day. Now, obviously, at the time of this recording, Star Trek Day has not happened yet, because we don't, in fact, record in the future.
But it was completely planned for us, Star Trek, basically a Star Trek show at this point, to release a new episode on Star Trek Day. We planned it out in our business meetings, but going back 6 months, we're like, okay, we got to have something for September 8th, right? And then you were just like, well, it's a Friday, Dan. Yeah, we're gonna
big planning as of this evening. So it's Star Trek Day, and I want to mention that because it is kind of a big week. We already talked about how for your birthday they've released not Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks season 4 episodes 1 and 2, right, on Thursday of this week, and on I believe at the same time they also released the first of what they're calling very short treks, which are a bunch of short things, like in the style of the short treks from a few years ago, except now all apparently in the style of the original animated series.
Not all though?
Well, I think like at least or some in the style of Lower Decks. It's hard to say. Like
I saw there was a crossover that I saw Lower Decks characters intermingling on the same shot with people. Yeah, it's bizarre.
And I'd say that because the animated series was done by what's the I forget the studio. It's like the same group of people that did I think He-Man or some shit. Like it's not good animation. And so it's shocking to see that they're like, oh, they're leaning into that. But like, we're gonna do some stuff in the style of this very questionable animation style.
It was made by Filmation, who was indeed the studio behind He-Man.
Because their whole thing is, I believe that they were actually, their whole thing was, we do it on the cheap.
We do it on the cheap. Yeah, minimalistic animation, basically using still shots just so they can animate the mouth, or having looping animation that they've used multiple times before. And when there's action needed, they just rotoscope, which is not necessarily cheap, but it's definitely kind of like the quick way to do things. Because there are genuine like auteurs like Ralph Bakshi who make genuinely good stuff with rotoscope animation, but it's quite a look at the very least. And like from what I could see in the teaser that we saw, and I need to remind myself now to make the show image for this week the original animated series style of Riker playing the trombone, the show image for this week. That they even put like the grain on it. I would even say it might be like a CRT filter on there. But yeah, they're nailing the aesthetic. Do we know much more about that, or just that it's happening?
It's happening, and apparently they're featuring a lot of they brought a lot of people back, right? So there's Ethan Phillips will be reprising Neelix. The dude that played the commander on Enterprise, Trip Tucker is the character. I forget the actor's name. He'll apparently be doing one. I think Jonathan Frakes is doing one.
He's probably directing one too.
Right? It's that weird thing where I didn't even know about this until I saw I think they announced it a few weeks ago, but I only saw it this week. And I was like, wait, what? like why are we leaning hard into that? But also at the same time, that it's part of the legacy of Star Trek, right? It is, and actually I would say even now it is more so canonical Star Trek than, right? Like things in Star Trek have adopted that. Like Lower Decks has done some stuff that references the animated series. I think some other things have made passing reference to. Actually, Robert April technically was canonically introduced in the animated series, although he was surprisingly white.
Do you have any expectations for Star Trek Day this year? Last year, we didn't even record an episode about it because there was really nothing going on. It's more like they kind of just released stuff throughout the week in general. And especially with all the sort of, I don't want to say controversy, but disappointing news perhaps that's been surrounding Star Trek. Specifically, I'm thinking about like Prodigy and how badly they've handled that. Is this going to be a capital ST? Oh wow, an STD Star Trek Day is what I meant to say.
That's yikes.
Or is it going to be an SCD for fandom?
So I know they have an event planned. So like they're going to live stream stuff. They're going to show some episodes. They also the whole Lower Deck season 3 is now available on YouTube right now.
Right.
Leading up to the release of the season 4 premiere this week. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, they're trying, but you're right? Star Trek Prodigy was not canceled. It was taken off of the streaming service that said it was going to be for all things Star Trek, which is, I don't know.
And with no announcement of any new home it's going to have.
Except that then StarTrek.com released a 3-minute video of the first episode of season 2. So you're like, well, wait a second. This is a show that has no place where it's going to premiere, but you're giving me video to pump the premiere.
Because there's no information in that 3-minute video either, right?
Other than what the show's about, but nothing about where you're going to be able to watch
Catch it on CBS.com in fucking November.
Catch it on Amazon when you have to buy the Blu-ray. I don't know.
Right? So we have that issue. I wonder if they're going to address that. And it'll be interesting to check back next week going how much did they not even address any of this? I'm also thinking about just the future of the franchise. Discovery's wrapping up this year or next year. Technically still have that Michelle Yeoh movie, right?
Right.
Anything is not going to be going into production anytime soon either, unless it's maybe animated. So I really am interested to see if there's anything truly surprising coming on the 8th.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even think of that. I forget that animated stuff has a different union.
Yeah.
So suddenly the idea that this is because they're emphasizing the 50th anniversary of the animated series. It's oh no, here's where they now announce a new animated show because that's all they can make.
What if they officially announce Star Trek the Animated Series season 3?
Oh, I think it's season 2, isn't it?
I in the information I'm looking at, it said I'm reading that it had 2 seasons.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's just a bunch of real mess episodes. I mean, they could, right? Although I guess they could get. Actually, that's weird. They could totally get all the new people they're casting from Strange New Worlds.
Or they could just use AI to generate the audio dialogue featuring the voices of the original actors.
It is also true.
There are enough art assets out there that they could probably just use AI like Midjourney to create the show. Fuck, I don't like the road going down here.
So anyway, Star Trek Day. And for those that don't know, just to bring it back, Star Trek Day it's the premiere day of the original series in 1967. Mm-hmm. Sorry, 63. That's Doctor Who. So it's the idea that September 8th is when the show originally premiered. So that's why it's the bullshit day, right? It's like May the 4th.
Right. I'd like to see them branch outside into maybe other media. There was that, from what I was reading, well-reviewed episodic Star Trek game that came out from a studio made up of former Telltale designers. I didn't see on my Paramount Plus app them hyping that at all. It'd be cool because, like I said, from what I was reading and what I was seeing, people tended to like it.
Right.
And actually see them kind of, mess with this multimodal franchise a bit more. Which at this point, I don't see them announcing any new TV shows or anything surprising, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. But I feel bad saying I feel like it's going to be an underwhelming day.
Oh, of course. Unless, again, they announce some big new animated show, because that's the only one that's not, striking. Which is another problem. But
well, they're shorts, right? So they're going to be like interstitials, like short things to watch. Are they going to be even be on Paramount Plus, or going to be on the website? I don't know.
So the original short treks that they did were on Paramount Plus or CBS All Access, and they were kind of like a thing. Now, I believe all of the ones that they did, because they're all part of essentially Discovery.
Right.
I believe they're all now on Blu-ray.
Okay.
Like a separate Blu-ray package, which has like the 5 or 6 of them, because while some of them were adjacent to or related to Discovery, some of them were just their own thing. There's an animated one that was like just unrelated to anything Discovery did. There's one about the dude that ostensibly made Tribbles.
Right.
I think the idea is that they do those. I know the animated stuff is going to be even more ridiculous. Like, it's just, they're not going to be connected to anything. So, like, I don't know, maybe they'll release them somewhere other than Paramount Plus, but I believe the primary delivery mechanism right now is streaming.
As a person that hasn't watched the animated series, I feel like it's kind of, for a while, it was kind of the joke. Like, it's like, oh yeah, we don't talk about, it's almost like had the status of like the Star Wars holiday special or something. But I feel like maybe the esteem has changed over the last couple like years or decade or something like that. How much of it have you seen? What do you think of it? And is it actually attempting to fit into, like, is it attempting to be the phase 2 for like, we're not the official phase 2?
Very much.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, the writers are all, it was, I believe, led by DC Fontana. It was Star Trek. Like, it had most of the cast. It was written by people that wrote Star Trek or other people. Like, it tried to do Star Trek, except in 23-minute episodes that were animated by a studio that had no regard for animation. It is the joke because they recycle footage. It was animated badly, but the stories they did, some of them were actually like they sat in the space of that's a Star Trek, right? Like, that is a Star Trek story that is interesting. I mean, some of them were a bit more ridiculous or hyperbolic because they could, right? They do things that the original series could never do because it's animated. Like, oh, we can do crazy alien shit or whatever, right? Like, we can have an alien who, whatever, like, does weird stuff. So I think, yeah, it's Star Trek. It not always the best Star Trek.
Right.
But again, not all Star Trek is the best.
Maybe you said this, I was just conflating it, but like, yes, September 8th was when the original series premiered, right? Mm-hmm. September 8th is also when the animated series premiered.
Oh, so that's why it's the 50th anniversary.
Yeah. September 28th was when TNG premiered. This is getting conspiratorial here. I'm just going to look up Deep Space Nine real quick.
Or that's just all shows, historically premiered in September.
Yeah, looks like maybe Deep Space Nine was a mid-season replacement.
Yeah.
Started in January. All right. That's cool. Sorry.
So I'd say, like, it does weird stuff. They definitely, like, they did weirder episodes, like, with weirder aliens, with weird stuff. Like, stuff that like, oh, man, whoever wrote this knew they didn't have the budget for live action, right?
I also feel like before the DVD era, it was also kind of like just one of those shows you heard about because it was never, at least I never saw like repeats of it or anything like that. It was just kind of this thing that felt like culture kind of tried to hide in a way.
Well, I would agree with you, other than the fact that I know my father bought the entire animated series on Laserdisc somewhere in the early 90s.
So yes, they tried to bury it.
Thank you, Laserdisc.
What are your thoughts about it? Like, just generally speaking, you love, you grew up with Star Trek. Obviously your dad loves Star Trek. Or does it carry the same kind of nostalgia or interest or
no,
kind of canon in your head?
Obviously not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a mess. I mean, they try. And I think that's actually why I think it probably has more gravity now.
Yeah.
Why people now look back at it with like more endearing eyes is that they were trying. The animation is awful, right? Like we joke about how bad it is. Memes are made about how bad it is. Yes. But it was still written in the same, like the same milieu, the same feel. They were trying to write Star Trek. And they sometimes went hard in ways they never would have gone before. Because they knew, like, you know what? Like, you can imagine them writing, like, remember that episode where, like, everyone was, turned into babies? Like, we can do that now, right? Like, we don't have to hire a room full of babies. So that's an episode.
Yeah, so they played with that's one thing that I'm kind of hearing most, and success or failure, they were really playing with the limits of the medium.
Yes.
Perhaps limited by, obviously, the length of the episode and the quality of studio that they had teamed up with, right? Maybe as many failures as successes, it might sound like.
What I would say is actually, to me, Lower Decks represents like the idea of, yes, we can do what that show wanted to do, but more effectively. Granted, being done as a comedy, but like just the idea that, like, yes, because if you watch Lower Decks, they do whatever they want. Like, they can do the kind of things that a live action show may struggle with, because it's, it costs just as much for the guy to draw the whatever thing as the whatever thing.
And that's the other thing that I think makes it stand out and what makes it work amid the Star Trek oeuvre. And this is a question I'd have to do some research to find out the answer to. The Lower Decks is written, even though it's only on streaming, it's written as like a primetime comedy series. It is, for all intents and purposes, written for an older audience.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's like this because I don't like some of these shows, but it's kind of aiming for the same audience as something like Family Guy, as Rick and Morty, as all that kind of stuff, right? And I want to know if the original animated series was, in a sense, trying to continue the original series.
Written for kids.
Written for kids, which makes me wonder, was it a Saturday morning show? Was it a primetime show?
That I don't know.
Yeah. And so, which would be interesting. I'm going to guess it's probably, it's going to air with other kids' shows.
Definitely. So, like, and that impacted how they wrote things. But, like,
for sure.
I mean, thinking back, there's still episodes that are like, oh, that's a big, it's a Star Trek episode watered down for kids, right? Which, I don't think that's fine.
Well, I mean, they should have learned their lesson, Prodigy. It didn't work the first time. No.
Well, and actually, I would say that now we've learned a lot because, again, for sure. Cartoons in the 70s were very different than they are now.
I.e. mostly bad. Yeah, so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they reveal specifically about these shorts. And yeah, like you said, it is also the 50th anniversary of the original animated series. They have some just announcements about that, about release, whatever, right? Do you know if that is available streaming on Paramount Plus, or if they already removed it from the?
No, actually, I think it is. Sorry, I don't. I'm not.
You had one job, Andrew.
Like, I'm not rewatching the animated series.
You're on the ground Star Trek correspondent.
Well,
where's Taylor? Taylor. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topic we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media, specifically at the places that we frequent, which means you can find me on Instagram at dbethelcomics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at profounddark@dice.camp.
While you're at our website, forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page. You may already be there listening to our show as it's simulcast in YouTube. If you are on YouTube, please like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusae, the other is called District 4. And they're both written and performed by Kevin McLeod, the Clan McLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music at incompetech.fieldmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 attribution license.
If you like the show and like to help us out, dear listeners, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review, whether a text review or using their proprietary metric to help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. I heard a rumor, Andrew.
What?
And it had me disturbed. You play multiplayer online, games now? Are you a Halo? Are you doing the modern? Are you Call of Dutying?
First of all, I've always played. We've talked about. I played Fallout 76.
The game notoriously known for having being a very quiet, lonesome game.
Yes. No. So yes. I may have started playing Dead by Daylight, and it's a asynchronous, or not asynchronous.
Nope, asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical. Sorry.
So it's an idle game.
It's an asymmetrical game where basically one person is the killer and then 4 people are the survivors. And it's, over the course of 5 to 20 minutes, it's either get away or kill everybody.
It's an interesting concept, yeah, and that has been tried with varying degrees of success over the last 5 years. I know they did I think just recently, the Friday the 13th game. They have done a Friday the 13th game. Just recently was released a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. They even did an Evil Dead game.
Yeah, it's one of the things where, because Dead by Daylight is not new. It's actually
right. Oh, really?
Quite old.
Oh, really?
I mean, it came out 2017 or 18.
Wow.
Or some shit like that.
They were butt babes.
All these other games were trying to capture what Dead by Daylight did.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they all realized, we can't support our own community. Right. We'll just license our shit. So that's why, Dead by Daylight now has Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, Halloween as licensed properties.
Right. Didn't they do Alien? I think
that's the one that came out. That's actually... So a friend of mine who loves Alien and Dead by Daylight was like, hey, man, is anyone playing this game? I'm like, well, I'll start playing. Which is why I picked it up. Mm-hmm. Without any of the stuff. But yeah, the idea that you can now be people running from a xenomorph. It's a killer that's trying to kill you, right?
Right.
Or you could be Ellen Ripley running from The Shape.
Right. And what's interesting about these types of games is that in a lot of these situations, I think the natural instinct would be to one person's playing the monster and the other people are trying to play the space marines trying to kill the monster. But in a lot of them, I think the ones that have been most successful, and I'm thinking Dead by Daylight's like this, it's the people that are playing just the survivors, for lack of a better word, aren't you don't have a lot of options for offense, or generally you're very weak, and usually the goal is to get away or get some sort of egress point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And you're enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a casual thing, spend 20 minutes a day. Let me do the thing. Let me fail at the thing, because I'm not good at it.
So, Andrew Asplin, guilted into gaming.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very niche, video game focused therapy podcast or something like that. Guilted into gaming. But especially with that, what you said, the Halloween kind of content, what makes me happy is knowing that that's just another instance of John Carpenter sitting at home playing his video games when a hand magically appears and puts a check into his hand. As he loves to talk about with Halloween and stuff like that.
And actually, what I love is the idea that he seems like the kind of guy,
right?
He seems like the kind of guy that would play Dead by Daylight. And you're like, yeah, I'm playing I'm the Shape, I'm killing people, and then check appears.
So until You get guilted into gaming, dear listeners. I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast.
if you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service... Jesus Christ. I'm stuck in a loop.
You could find his music at... For all intents.
Yep. He works for us now. Recording.
Let's get down to recording to defeat the fans.
Well, let's move that cursor. There we go.
Oh yes, I should move it too. Accidents
It's always
happen.
scary. Just, yo, boy.
It amuses me to no end how that movie. I don't know, like why it's weirdly now one of my favorite of that era. And it wasn't like it's not great. Arguably, some of the other movies might be better, but like, man, you know what stupid songs I sing more than anything? Let's get down to business.
The only movie with an ostensible villain?
What do you mean?
I mean, again, not to quote our own show, his major task was standing in landscapes.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
He doesn't even get a song.
He doesn't. That's true.
Does he even have is he voiced? I can't remember.
He's voiced.
Okay.
I mean, he is for the 5 lines, you know.
Or is it just this?
No, he's not a Skyrim character.